I don't consider myself an expert in pedagogy. I don't know, is that how you pronounce it? Mm-hmm. Pedagogy? Mm-hmm. But it's pedagogue, but pedagogy. Mm-hmm. I myself have 4 children. My wife and I have 4 children.
So you're advanced amateur, right?
And I also think that my oldest kid is 6. So I have a certain perspective about parenting because of the nature, the makeup of the family that we have, and obviously I'm sure that's going to change. That's going to evolve when you have different ages, in children, so different challenges and different aspects of parenting that come up. And I'm sure that what my perspective that it is right now will change. But I want to clarify that I don't consider myself an expert. I want to say, who is this guy? Let's see his kids. Let's see how well they behave. You should have brought your kids here. How do you consider yourself an authority? So I don't. So what material did I use to collect for this information? It's not really so much the way I parent, even though I do think that I do model my parenting after the principles that we're going to talk about today, but more specifically, it comes from the way my parents parented me, and obviously, as you could all see, my parents did a fairly decent job. Maybe even we could say stellar. But I'm one of 9 children, and I think my parents actually did a pretty good job in all seriousness. And I come from a long family history of pedagogues. My grandfather was a renowned in this field, in the field of education, specifically young children, adolescents, but even educating yourself. He wrote the definitive book on the Torah's perspective of educating oneself. Like, how do you train yourself to do X, Y, or Z, or to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve? So, and he was, for many years, heading many institutions in Europe, then in Israel after the war. His father was also in education in Berlin. So that's my perspective. So what I'm going to try to do is give what I think are the 10 commandments, or the 10 most critical principles of parenting, based upon what I learned from my parents, my grandfather, mostly my grandfather, but also what the Torah says. And we'll try to shed some light on, the Torah's instructions and guidance that they give to parents, and try to obviously extrapolate it for modern times. Before we get started, I think it's also important to mention that depending on what you want the goal to look like, that is what, the efforts that you're going to do to achieve that goal will be directed towards that goal. And what I mean by that is, if you want your child to be, a gymnast, right? You probably would send them to, that would be something that you would do. You would try to direct your educational activities towards him or her being a gymnast. If you want them to be a mathematician, whatever the goal is, that's going to determine what you're going to do to achieve that goal. So, therefore, when we say about parenting, it can mean different things to different parents and the different goals that they set for their children. What I'm going to be talking about today is very general principles. So the principles, some of them are strategies, some of them are tactics, but the principles, some of them are universal. So like, you want to have a child be anything, you'll have to use these rules, but some of them are more specific. So the child that we're going to try to mold today is going to be, number one, we're going to try to have him have good character. We want him to be a mensch. We want him to be someone who's independent, someone who is responsible, someone, but also someone who has Jewish values. And how do we impart, that part of our lives and our heritage in our children? That's also going to be something which is important. Like, obviously, if someone here, or not someone here, but if this particular part of the talk would not be pertinent to someone who's not Jewish, right? So, but they'll have to If someone wants their child to be any religion or any ideology or any values that you want to integrate into your child, that's also part of the parenting efforts that you have to do. Okay? How's everyone doing? I need to hear some feedback. Nice to see some new faces here also. Okay, shall we start?
Do you want my password and a sign-in?
Yeah, if I could get everyone's name, it would be nice. Yeah, we for whatever reason, I just haven't been. We usually have a sign-in sheet that Amy at the office prepares, but I've been negligent. Okay, let's start with number 1. What's the first most important? But what's the first? Thou shalt parent. Now wait a minute. What does that mean? Thou shalt parent. How is that one of the 10 Commandments? So I think it's important for us to realize that whatever it is that we want to achieve in our parenting goals, we have to do it. We have to teach our children how to act, how to live, how to behave. These are things that we cannot assume will happen on their own. We can't assume that, society will teach them, their siblings will teach them, the neighborhood, school. This is our responsibility. As a parent, right, you are obligated, you have responsibilities towards your child to educate them. You can't just assume it'll happen on its own. In fact, if in all likelihood, if you let a child just, without any monitoring, without being actively involved in their education, in their development, most probably the results won't be that remarkable. Probably not, right? Because parenting means the baseline of it is that you have to be active, you have to be involved, you have to be on top of your child, you have to parent. You cannot expect this to happen on its own. We're told in the Torah. The Torah tells us that a parent has a certain set of responsibilities to their child. If I am going to bring a child into this world, I am taking on responsibilities to take care of that child. Obviously, to take care of them physically, emotionally, financially. I have to pay for it, right? A parent can't say, "Oh, what do you mean? You're on your own," right? You can't do that, obviously. But that's in a very specific area of life. But in everything, right? By having a child to have responsibilities. So, what are these responsibilities they have? So the Talmud gives us a very interesting insight. It says, number 1, I have to circumcise him. What does that mean? Obviously, we know that there's a mitzvah. The very first mitzvah that a child does is, they need to be circumcised. Who's responsible for that? The parent. Now, why does it tell us the mitzvah of circumcision, not the mitzvah of, reading from the Torah or eating matzah or something like that? There's other mitzvahs. Right? Oh, so you could say it's a very important mitzvah. That's
No, that's what it says.
The what?
It says that the child shall be circumcised on the 7th day, and that is the covenant 8th day, and that it's the covenant.
So you're saying that the reason why circumcision was specifically mentioned is because it's very important, right? It's crucial. It's fundamental. Is that what you're saying?
It's for a boy.
But clearly other mitzvahs as well, right? You have to teach your child how to eat matzah or whatever. So yes, so I think So you're saying it's the first mitzvah that the child's going to do.
Yes.
So I think that your point is.
It's an infant. You can't really do too much with it in a week.
No, but I think that what you're shedding light is on when the Talmud is telling us we have to circumcise our child. What it's really telling us, we have to do, obviously we have to teach our children all the mitzvahs, but we have to start from day one. We can't say, oh, you know what? I'll wait till my child is 15 or 20, and then I'll teach them all about Judaism and about our heritage and about what's important to us, what are the values that we have from our religion. I have to start from day one. Right? Circumcision, which is the very first mitzvah, it's the first week of the child's life, already then I'm starting. So obviously, in practical life, it's not so practical. A child gets a little bit older, but a child's 2 years old. The child should know. Know that we're Jewish. We're proud to be Jews. We have something very special. We have a great contribution that we've given to society. Right? Give them a little bit of Jewish pride, a little bit of Jewish meaning, and constantly be nurturing their Jewish vibrancy. So we have to circumcise a child. We have to teach him Torah. Obviously, Torah is teaching them Torah is encapsulating everything that the values of Judaism. That's the one header for everything. Right? We have to be in charge of educating our children in areas of faith, in areas of religion, and Jewish values. Now, this I found interesting. We have to marry off our child. We have to marry off our child. We have to find them a spouse. Now, wait a minute. I was thinking, wait a minute. Our children are getting married. I don't know, what's the average age of a first marriage in America? Probably 25, 27, something like that. They're kind of a little bit out of your domain. Like they're on their own. Like, what could the Talmud mean for us today when it's telling us that we're, as parents, our responsibilities extend to finding a spouse?
Could it mean that part of our responsibility as a parent to make our children self-sufficient and make that part of the goal so they
Or social.
make the right choice?
Well, it's the one decision that your child will make. That
I'm
will
not in charge of my
change them.
kids' procreation.
No, but
Right.
But as a parent, you can see kind of characters. You can, in a sense, guide your child. Like, well, they seem nice, but look at this particular characteristic. So even if a child is fully grown, you still have a certain amount of influence as a parent if you've raised them. So as a parent and as being wiser and older, you might see attributes that might be probably want to be parent.
Okay, and Janet, you were saying?
You were saying.
I forget what I
You were saying. I think that what you're saying is certainly one element of it. That yes, that even as a child, even though a child is older, they should still have a warm relationship, and you should still be involved. But I also think there's legitimacy to saying that the way or the direction that the child is headed when they still are in your domain, even as little kids, you're putting them on a path towards how their adulthood is a product of their childhood. So them getting married and them starting their own family, right, that is going to be the extent of your parenting is going to reach at that far. So this might be pertinent for you when the child's 6 and you teach them about the value of having a family and the importance of continuing a tradition of bringing people to the world and taking responsibility for others and being part of a Jewish community, right? Those values, even though they are, you're inculcating them into your child at a very early age, they will play out when the child's about to get married.
I was going to say, when you raise them the way we're talking about as children, then if you do the right steps, when they get to that age, you've hopefully given them the fundamental knowledge and basis to make those choices on their own.
Exactly.
That's part of what we're talking about.
Absolutely. Yes. Okay, what else?
The rabbi said you're supposed to teach a child how to swim.
Oh, about to get that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll let you. I don't want to steal the thunder, but I just remembered the 3 things that I was always told that the rabbis taught that were the parents' responsibility.
Mm-hmm. So this is from that same piece of Talmud. It's in Kiddushin 30a and b if you want to look it up. Teach a child a trade. So much so, the Talmud says, same place, that if if you don't teach your child a trade, you're in essence teaching them how, to be a thief. Because, if the child won't have an honest trade, he'll find a dishonest trade. And that's part of the responsibility that you take upon yourself when you bring a child to this world, is that I am going to teach him to be self-sufficient. I'm not going to let him just, that's my responsibility. That's what I am accepted by myself when I bring a child to this world. And lastly, you got to teach him how to swim. Now, swimming, what about, means you have to teach him how to swim, like the backstroke, or, yeah, is that, is that really what all it means? Or, what it really means is that you have to teach him that you're going to be in situations like a swimming pool where you'll face certain dangers, and you need to learn the tools to deal with those. So, obviously, swimming is one of those. If a child's just thrown into the deep, right, they shove him and doesn't know how to swim, he might drown and die. That's not a good thing, right? That's a danger that a parent has to foresee. Hence, the parent has to teach the child how to deal with the dangers that they will, in most likelihood, encounter. So that's why it means swimming, but it's not a aquacentric responsibility. Rather, it's dealing with all the dangers that a child may encounter. So just off the top of my head, if I'm thinking that we're gonna send our kids to college, and colleges, universities in America may be hotbeds of anti-Israel activity, that's a danger, right? You want your child to understand the value, to be able to engage in an argument as to the validity of the state of Israel. Just off the top of my head, that's a danger the child will encounter. Your job is to ensure that he knows that as a Jew and as a supporter of the state of Israel, he understands the validity of the Jews' claim to Israel. And so it could be the international law based. It could be based upon the historical claim, whatever it is. That's a danger a child will encounter. Your job as a parent is to prepare your child for life, to educate him, to teach him or her. Obviously, when I say him, it means him or her. I have 3 boys and a girl, so.
Secondarily, also, you teach them that they really aren't just responsible to save themselves. If they can't save themselves, they can't save another person either.
With regards to?
Well, certainly with regard to swimming, they wouldn't be able to, they can't save themselves, they can't save somebody else. But if they don't have the fundamental understanding of who they are and what makes them tick, the extension would be they probably aren't going to be able to wrap their heads around how another person ticks either.
Yes, so you're saying is that a parent has an obligation to not only teach their child how to survive and thrive, but also how to be a great person and help others. Right. I think when the Talmud tells us, teach them how to, what they're saying is the bare minimum. This is, you have to do it. As a parent, thou shalt parent. You're in charge of taking care of the child physically, educating him or her in either to how to achieve positive outcomes, in values, in morals, in ethics, like teaching Torah, in mitzvahs, like circumcise, but also in a profession, and to deal with the potential dangers that they will encounter. Obviously, that's the baseline. That's for everyone. What you're saying is that yes, if your child is going to be someone who's going to accomplish something significant in their lives, that's probably also going to be a product of some of the parenting efforts that you did.
Well, they're either going to turn out to be givers or they're going to turn out to be takers, because they're and at some point in time they will probably be both.
And that's going to your parenting is going to impact that. Absolutely.
I see many people that they don't get to learn how to swim and all of that, and all of a sudden they're parents at 22 and the grandparents become the parents.
You're saying that
It's thrown back because they never learned.
yeah, but those grandparents may have been negligent parents. So
That's what I'm saying. So it's the payback for the negligence.
if you can't parent your own kids, certainly you should be parenting other people's kids, right?
You see that even in the prisons. You see, I'll have a prisoner that go, my mom's in here too. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's cycles. I mean, the mother gave birth early, wasn't parented, the child was raised, it's not parented, it's just like this horrible cycle.
Exactly.
But nobody stood up and said, I'm going to be the parent, and this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, so the first I think each one of these 10 that we'll talk about today on their own is so crucially important. I might say have superlatives. Well, this is the most important. A lot of them. This is crucial. And sometimes people there's lots of stuff happening in life. Life is, people are busy and they have to remember, if you're a parent, by definition, you must parent. You have to be involved. You have to educate your child. You have to teach them about matters of faith and religion, obviously, but also matters of life, just life. Right? You're in charge. The child's going to learn it from you primarily. And I think this would also include to monitor your kids. Like in my head, I know I have 4 kids, and I know where they're all holding, so to speak. Like, what are they going through? Like, what stages, what phases are they going through right now? And as my wife and I, as parents, we know like our kids he's going through a tough time. So we have to compensate our parenting efforts because of the reality of where they're holding in life. And that's also part of it. You have to be involved, in your kids and be active. It's dynamic. It's not just rigid. It's not static.
Well, I maintain that we've got to see what the environment is producing today, like teach them how to swim. That's fine. But I think we have to teach the boys a little bit about self-defense now. And the girls, I would suggest that they get into ballet for future development, at least for when they're young people. They've got to start. I've seen these Jewish families. Oh my God! Don't let him do that. He shouldn't dirty his hands or something like that. My lands. I mean, when they go out into the world, you know what's out in the world. I mean, gee whiz. No matter where you go, you can't escape it. They're going to have to learn how to take care of themselves in that regard.
So you mean like physical self-defense? Like if someone starts up with them in an alley?
Yes.
Well, if that danger is a danger that they will definitely encounter in life, then absolutely. That's part of teaching your child how to swim.
Well,
right?
and bullying in school, which is what he's talking about, is you need to be able to teach your child how to cope with the factors of public school.
I think that would certainly fall into the category of teaching a child how to swim. If there's a danger, they're going to definitely encounter that. Yes, swim was just one thing that all of us will probably encounter once in our lives. But that would include everything, every danger, every pitfall, every challenge and obstacle in your child's life. It's important to prepare them for it.
I was raised on Irish Hill in Springfield, Ohio. We had the potato famine Irish. You walk out the door, there's a fight brewing here. You go up to this block, it's a full-fledged fight. Go down there. Juan Kennedy, the poor black Irish giant, getting beat the hell out of him by 10 cops because he went off this rock where he got gassed in the war. Okay, when we left our door, we had to put on a mental suit of armor right now.
Yeah, so then your parents, right, they should realize that that's a danger that the kids will encounter, prepare them for it. As parents, we have to parent.
We kind of, when you're talking about learning how to swim, to us, we view that as you're teaching your child, male or female, basic life skills and how to navigate the world. It's not just about gender and about what's important with the religion, but life is life. Their role is to give them those skills so that when they get to that age.
Absolutely. Like I mentioned, some of these are Judaism specific, and most of them are not. Most of them are just any parenting. These are the principles. So that's the first one. Thou shalt parent. Number 2, thou shalt individualize your parenting. What about that? What I mean by that? Every child is different. So you mentioned the ballet, right? Some kids will say, I don't want to go to ballet. I don't want to read. I want to go outside and just climb trees all day and all night.
All right.
That's a character type. There's different character types. And we cannot have a cookie cutter educational process. We can't say, oh, it worked for your brother. Why are you not more like your brother? Why are you not look at him. He sits and reads. He's academically involved. He wants to, why do you have to make messes? Why do you have to be the one who's going crazy and jumping on tables and bouncing off walls? We have to realize every kid is different. We have to tailor educational efforts to the nature of our child. We cannot assume that what works for one kid, what one kid responds to, the other child will respond to as well. We just had the holiday of Passover. Passover, part of the Haggadah, is the 4 sons. Remember the 4 sons? The reason why we're told about these 4 sons is because we have to realize that on Passover, it's a time for education towards faith. Different kids respond differently. You have 4 different kinds of kids. Each kid needs to be dealt with in a very specific, individualized way. I cannot say that this is the way you're going to be, and I'm going to force it upon you. Why? I may be successful in the short term, but in the long term, if I'm going to go against your character, eventually you'll want to revert back to your character type because character types are unchangeable. Doesn't mean the characteristics or character traits are unchangeable. But character types are unchangeable. If you have someone like I do, I have kids, I see two kids. One of them is docile, quieter. Personality types, character types, that's the same. And some of them are a little bit more vivacious. They're louder, they're more, and that's just the way they are. And that's the way they're going to be to the day they die. That's the way they are. That's the way the Almighty made them. There's different kinds of kids. And therefore, I cannot assume that what works for one kid is what works for the other kid. I cannot force a kid to act in a way which is contrary to their innate, inborn nature. We're told in the Talmud, the Talmud, this is Shentik Shabbos 156a. It talks about a certain child. It says a child that was born in with a certain characteristic, right, is going to be a bloodshedder. Some kids are going to be bloodshedders. Those are the kind of kids that like dissecting daddy long legs. We've all encountered some of those. Remember at school, there's always that kid who likes somehow took pleasure in pulling the legs off one at a time, right? Pretty nasty, right? There's those kind of kids. Those kids will be bloodshedders. They could choose, however, in what arena they're going to shed blood. Are they going to be a mohel? Mohel is a circumciser, so there's a mitzvah. Are they going to be a doctor or surgeon? Also a mitzvah. Are they going to be a butcher, which is neutral, or are they going to be a murderer, which is bad? The character type is unchangeable. What you're going to do with that character is up to you. Our children also, and we can see this. And any parent that has two kids knows this. Right? You see that children are different. They have certain character types, and we have to make sure that we're not forcing a square into a circle or vice versa. We have to individualize our parenting. There's a famous verse, probably the most famous verse in all of the Jewish Bible about parenting is from Proverbs 22.
Train up the child in the way it should go, and when it is old, it will not depart.
How do you like that?
Absolutely.
Janet. Sounds a big. Chanoch lenar al pi darko. Train or educate a child as per his way. Gam ki yaskan li'asar mena. Means also, right? Means if you train a child as per his way, also when he grows old, he will not deviate from it. Right? So there's two very important lessons from this verse. Train a child as per his way. We have to individualize our parenting. We cannot have cookie-cutter parenting. It doesn't work. That's the second of the Ten Commandments. But also the third of the Ten Commandments, and that is, thou shalt parent with a long-term view. Gam ki astin lo yasur mimena. This is once again Proverbs 22. Also, when he grows old, he will not deviate from it. Parenting, education, pedagogy, right, is about what's going to be when the child grows older. It's not just about what's happening right now. My grandfather once wrote in a letter, I saw the letter yesterday, he says that when you're parenting, you're focusing on what the child is going to be like when he or she is 30. You could have very immediate results in parenting. Child misbehaves. Right? My kids like ripping tablecloths, like plastic tablecloths, or putting feet in tables. Right? Bam, bam, bam. 2 or 3 smacks, and the kid is suddenly behaving like an angel. Ta-da! Immediate parenting. Immediate results. Right? It's amazing. It's just the best way to do things, right? All you gotta do is just a few zetzes. I'm being sarcastic. I'm being right?
I know.
Okay. But that's very, there's a way to have immediate results. Right? But that is short-sighted because that's short-term. The real success in parenting is determined when the child is much, much older. Also, when he grows old, he will not deviate from it. The parent, the wise parent who crafts his parenting, is always thinking down the line. My kid puts his feet on the table. Like when I was a little kid, I love sitting like this. I still do sometimes, but we know that this is something that a child will eventually grow out of. Right? You don't see adults with their feet on the table. You don't, usually not. You don't, right? It's something that kids will grow out of. Don't make a big deal about something because you think of it the long term. The child will anyhow grow out of it. Why would you make a big deal about it now? What?
Within the education system, speaking as a teacher,
Uh-huh.
public school system, one of the goals is that
Mm-hmm.
productive citizen. I mean, and so when you look at it like that, then that's what the overall goal is. You know, even as teachers, okay, how do you think so-and-so felt whenever you said that? I mean, it's so far, it's not just in teaching them reading and writing.
Mm-hmm.
It goes on into so many other things as a teacher out there. So what are you teaching them? You're teaching them as a teacher to become a good citizen, a productive citizen, you know, that can work with other people.
Mm-hmm. But I would argue that parenting is even more inclusive, right? You're teaching about life.
And it's kind of sad because in the system, school systems, they were having, when I was there last year ago, they had what they call, where the teachers actually took classroom time to teach them about being honest and character ed, because it's not being taught at home.
Yeah,
So more and
unfortunately.
more is being put into the school system, trying to squeeze in. It's really kind of sad.
And that's because, unfortunately, we know that 63% of children in America don't grow up in families that have with two biological parents, and the lowest figure in the Western world. So, unfortunately, Americans have been very negligent in their responsibilities as parents. Unfortunately, so yes, and what is outsourced to the school is just because the parents aren't doing their job. Unfortunately. But us as responsible parents, we know that this is our responsibility.
I'll say to add to that, part of our challenge as raising kids is the fact that there are seems to be a growing number of kids who are coming up in families that are not being parented. So that carries out to what they deal with outside when they're on their own, and it's helpful to teach your kid how to deal with those kids and deal with what they bring out and encounter from those other kids who are not being properly parented, and that shows in their actions out in the world that they have to deal with.
It's very unfortunate, and I would argue that if you were to find a way to take care of this problem of parents just not being there for their kids, not parenting, not teaching their kids about life and about what it means to be a human, you'd probably the crime rate would be halved. Because this is the root. When a kid doesn't have instruction, when there isn't a parent, then they just go awry. Then every influence on the street and every bad influence will just take hold.
Then if they don't get corrected, then it seems they tend to think this is acceptable behavior, so then it becomes normal behavior, but they think normal, which
There aren't standards, there aren't guidelines. Exactly, 100%. Okay, so we're in number 3. Thou shalt parent with a long-term view. We don't want to trade short-term gains for the long term. We always have to be thinking what's going to be like. What's the child going to be like when he's 10, 20, 30 even. Right? That's how big of a scope we have to look. And be careful not to just want to achieve immediacy. And a great illustration that my grandfather would always talk about is the idea of planting and building. Right? There's 2 ways to have growth. There's the building. Everything is manual. It's inorganic. Right? You have to lay a foundation. You have to put brick by brick. Everything that is going to be in the structure has to be done, has to be worked upon. And then there's planting. Planting, you drop a seed in the ground. Occasionally you water it, but it kind of sprouts on its own. It's organic. It's a process. It's development on its own. Parenting is half planting, half building. In certain areas of our children's life, we have to teach them things that they otherwise wouldn't know. We have to build. Right? There's a foundation. Right? There's stuff. Children have to be taught guidelines, how to act, how to be responsible, right? To build trust, to build our children, to build self-confidence, to give them love. Right? Those things are very active. There's another element of our parenting, which is also, like we said, very much focused on the long term, and that is planting. And that's to put an idea into a child and let it sprout and develop over time. Like, for example, this is back to teaching about our tradition. Like the Talmud says that child learns how to speak. First thing you teach a child when he learns how to speak is you teach him the verse in Deuteronomy, Torah tziva lanu Moshe, morasha kihilat Yaakov, which translates as Torah was instructed to us by Moshe, by Moses, and it is a heritage for the Jewish people. First thing the child learns when he speaks. So most kids don't remember what they learned, what their first words were. But what the lesson behind it, says my grandfather, is that the child right now is at a very critical point. And just like when you plant, right, there's a certain season for planting. You miss the season, you miss the crop. Right? You have to wait till next year, right? Or you lose out, you don't have it. Similarly, there's certain seasons in a child's development that are right for putting in a seed deep into their subconscious. They don't even know. Like, if I were to plant outside an apple tree, you would come by 2 weeks later, you wouldn't see anything. It doesn't have any. There's no results. Right? Nothing. But over time, 10 years, 20 years, you'll see a beautiful tree. Right? Because parenting is also about instilling ideas in children and letting them grow on their own. Letting them be, you plant it and it grows and it develops on its own. And that's why it's important also to not miss out. So the Talmud says, a child learns how to speak, right away speak to him in Hebrew, you teach him this verse, right? Because that's a time to implant this idea. But other ideas of faith, right? When a child sees a parent praying, so wait a minute, the child says, okay, Daddy is talking, but there's no one there. Why is Daddy talking? It seems bizarre. It seems strange. Right? Who's there? There's no one there. So you tell the child, oh, Daddy's talking, but Daddy's talking to something that you cannot see. And that's because the entire world was created by God. And we could talk to him, but we can't see him. That's an idea of planting, an idea of faith in our child that will grow and develop on its own. Obviously, with some maintenance, you got to water it a little bit. You have to be active a little bit with this development. But it's not something that you have to build on its own. It's not rigid. It's not building. It's planting. These two components are the foundation and the root of all parenting. Nice little play on words. Foundation, building, root, planting. I think maybe another sidebar in this is that we talked about teaching kids about faith and about Judaism. It's also important to answer questions. I was talking to someone yesterday, actually a convert to Judaism. He said that he was very curious. I'm like, what made you find he grew up in a very, very observant Christian family? So I said, what made you decide to, him and his wife, what made you decide to adopt Judaism? He says that he was very inquisitive and very curious, and he was always asking questions and never got satisfactory answers until he ended up in some Hebrew class, and he eventually said, I'm in. And it took him like 8 or 9 years to finally, go through the whole process of conversion. But he's now an active member in our community. So, and unfortunately, there are kids that have gone away from their heritage because of the same reason, because they asked questions and didn't get satisfactory answers. And we know children are very, very inquisitive. But it's important to answer the questions. The child asks something, you have to answer it. Right? That's your job as a parent, because this has very, very long-term effects on the child. You have to answer questions. Also, I was thinking with regards to teaching children about faith, my grandfather says that his teacher would give out little prizes to his children, i.e. my grandfather's teacher's children. He would give them prizes for pointing out areas of life or the world where God is involved. So and he would give them like prizes to say, okay, fine, the Almighty is involved because of X, Y, or Z. It's like I do this with my kids. I say, as an example, when you're walking on the street and you see, oh, someone's walking, you notice that their hands are swinging. Like, well, why are your hands swinging? Everyone who walks, their hands are swinging. Well, why do people swing their hands when they walk?
Balance.
Exactly. The Almighty made us in a very clever way that we shouldn't tip over to one way, so He made us just automatically let our hands swing to keep balance. It's just some little quirk in our lives that, we probably don't notice, but you tell a kid that and you say, wow, this thing is real. Right? God is involved, and God, helps us God loves us. Right? I tell my kids that, in your body, in your skull, there's a brain that the Almighty gave us, and the brain is just a fascinating organ, and what it does is X, Y, or Z, and what you're really doing is teaching kids about faith, and you're implanting ideas into their subconscious that will grow and develop over time. You have within yourself a network of pipes that carry blood back and forth. It's such a vast network that if you were to take them and just take all the pipes and put them end to end, they would be like as big as all the roads in America. Wow. And there's never any traffic jams, because if there are, you're probably dead. Wow. Amazing. That's the way to teach kids, about faith. And that's, once again, that's something which will play out over the long term. Can't expect them to find it on their own. Right? It may not have immediate results, but we're not looking for immediate results. Why? Thou shalt parent with a long-term view. That was number 3. Let's go to number 4. Thou shalt love your child and express it. You have to love your child. Not only that, you have to express it. You have to be affectionate to your child. Physical affection is very important. Right? Children, and I think humans as well, we have lots of needs that we may not even be able to articulate, and that is to connect to other people in a physical way as well. We need touch. Touch is a very basic human need. Children need that as well. You want, and this is something that the parent has to give. They have to love their child, and they have to also express it. Now, what happens when a parent loves a child? And what happens conversely when a parent does not love a child? Or they may love a child, but they may be, of course I love my child. Of course I love my child. But how often do I tell them about it? Right? How often do I communicate it to them? How often do I do loving activities and say, I just love you so much? How often do I give them 150 kisses before they go to sleep? I give my kids thousands of kisses a day. Thousands. Probably. Never counted. When a parent loves a child, any one of the other parental activities or efforts have a chance to succeed. So any tactics, any strategies that we talk about how a parent has to engage in child, and that it's all predicated on the fact that the parent loves their child and expresses it. If a parent loves his child and expresses it, then there is a chance for their parenting efforts to succeed. If a parent doesn't love a child or loves a child but doesn't express it, the child will not be able to be influenced by their parents. So this is like a baseline that's needed for any parenting efforts. Has to be that the parent loves the child and the parent expresses to the child. I said physical expression. And you know what? Children can't get enough of it. They can't get enough of it. They need hugs. They need love. They need parents lying down with their kids, with them and telling them stories. And my wife reads stories from my kids about an hour and a half a day. Probably an hour and a half, 2 hours a day. I don't know if maybe this is normal, but this is not normal. But before they go to bed, they're on the couch. We don't have a television, so that may be the best thing for parenting. So there's just tons and tons of books in my house, and they just sit all there, congregated, every one of them, from the little baby to the biggest one, and she just reads stories and talks to them, and that's just an act of love that a parent does to the child. And children need it like they need oxygen. They need love. They need touch. They need affection. They need it. My grandfather was very fond of the theory proposed by some Swiss sociologist or something like that, psychologist, who said that there was an idea called a social gestation. This guy found out that, as we know, that a small human baby who's born is literally like a block of wood, can't do anything. While all other creatures, all animals, the baby kitten is born, baby kitten can walk, crawl, can jump around, they're much more capable than humans. And why would the humans, the most capable of all creatures, be born, with such limited capabilities? The most limited of all other creatures. So, what this guy proposed, my grandfather liked it, so therefore I like it. I think it makes sense. I think it's something that it's useful for us. That there's an idea called social gestation. That the human gestation, the human pregnancy, is split into two parts. You have the in utero pregnancy, the child is actually what we would call pregnant, and then there's the social gestation. The next 9 months, it's really pregnancies are 18 months. They really are 18 months. Half of it is done in utero, the other half is done with the society, with the family, with parents, right? That's all part, of preparing a child for life. And then, the child's really a baby at 9. Then they could crawl, they could eat a little bit, right? That's, at that point is, they're kind of, at parity with other newborns of other species. Point being that there's a certain element that humans need, and that's love. And it's a basic need, and it's part of our development, and so crucial, so vital, so necessary, and parenting is not possible without it. Mm-hmm.
Little baby, look at the inflections, even though the words and the languages were different. I thought that was so
Interesting.
interesting.
Uh-huh. And the Almighty gives us a head start. Parents love their children. Like it's all other love in the world has to be, engendered, has to be developed. But a parent on day one loves their child. So we have a head start, so to speak. But if we're negligent, we'll lose that. That's very unfortunate. But I like we said, parenting and parenting efforts can only be successful if love exists and love is expressed. And I think all the more so when, during the tumultuous years of adolescence and teenagehood, the only thing that will enable a parent to be influential, to be of assistance to their child when they're going through those rocky times, is if there's a warm, loving, and open relationship that was already fostered since day one. If the whole relationship is one of pleasantness, of being calm, of being loving, right? Then when the child needs a parent most, they won't necessarily be rebellious and say, "I don't want anything to do with you," which is ironic. At the time where a child needs a parent most, that's usually the time when the child is most resistant to be involved with parents. But if the love exists and the love is fostered and nurtured and sustained from day one, the parent has the ability to be there for the child when the child needs it most.
I was just going to say that many parents parent with negativity. Don't do this, don't do that. How many times have I told you, not to do that? And if they just go in and a child wants attention, and if you can just go in there and put your hand on them and say, "Boy, you were really sitting there nicely," and reading that book very well instead of.
It's so much more effective. Positive parenting is so much more effective.
For my daughter, I don't tell her, no, don't do that. That was the wrong choice. I ask her, Isabel, is that the right choice to make? And she'll say, no.
But also, when she does do the right choice, you highlight that. A child makes a mistake, or a child, let's say, does the right thing. The good parent is going to focus on when the child does the right thing. And the kid can infer very well not to do the negative thing.
Oh, they're very smart.
Your kids are very, very sensitive to to parenting and to inflections in parenting. So, but if a child does the right thing and does the wrong thing, obviously a parent expects the child to do the right thing and wants to point out that no, this is the wrong thing. But the right thing to do, I don't know if this makes any sense. It sounds a little complicated. It's like a tongue twister. But the right thing for the parent to do is when the child does the right thing, to say, "Wow, look how well you did the right thing," and then the child will know that that's the right thing and the wrong thing is the wrong thing. This thing said right thing, wrong thing. Exactly.
Well, and I think some kids get confused because their parents will say, I told you not to smoke a cigarette. Why are you smoking a cigarette? And they got a cigarette hanging out their mouth. You know what I mean?
Well, the parent has.
When the parent has a cigarette hanging out there, I told you not to smoke. It's bad for you. And but kids are very, very observant, and they will mimic their parents, and so sometimes it's.
It's funny because that's actually number 6.
Sorry.
No, it's good. It's good. Okay, so that was number 4. Number 4 we said was, thou shalt love your child and express it. Number 5, thou shalt boost your child's self-esteem. This is what my opinion. So you may, as you guys all know, you're allowed to disagree. In fact, that's encouraged. In my opinion, the most important thing for a parent to give to their child is self-confidence, self-esteem, the feeling that they could do it, that they're good, that they have skills, that they have abilities, that they have something to contribute. Because that is a gateway to everything. The people that are successful in life are the ones who have self-confidence. And the people that have self-confidence, self-esteem, they have good relationships, they have good professional lives, they're positive people because they feel good about themselves. And conversely, negative, poor self-esteem, contributes to every negative thing. And schools, in the school environment, someone mentioned bullies, but school is something where a kid is usually not a place where it builds a child's self-esteem, because there's always someone that's better. It's very competitive. Right? Kids feel that if they put someone else down, then they themselves, their stature goes up. So kids are going to be in many, many situations where their self-esteem is going to be tested and challenged, and and it's important for them to have a strong basis, a strong foundation from their home, where positive reinforcement, but where they're told that they're to accomplish, they could be successful. Right? I believe in you. A parent says to the child, "I believe in you. I trust in you." I know what we try to do in our family, like by our Shabbos table. Like our kids from the age of 2 we have them bringing stuff in, so they're holding dishes or stuff like that. We trust them. Of course the kid could do it. Right? If you believe in your child, you believe that they could do it, then they will be able to do that. If you tell a child, "I believe it," what you tell a child that he is, that's what he actually will be. So if you boost their self-confidence and they say, "Of course you could do it. I trust you. I believe in you. I have full confidence that you could do it. Of course you could do it." Well, then they're able to do it. If you constantly say, no, hold it this way, hold it that way, if you're constantly saying that they cannot do it, well, they probably won't be able to do it. I had a very interesting observation. So my dad was a heavy smoker for many, many years. He started smoking when he was 14, and he quit when he was 50. So 36 years, and he was a fairly heavy smoker. Till this day, he says, worst thing I ever did was to quit smoking. Worst thing I ever did. So this is important to the story because I'm one of 9 siblings, and none of us are smokers at all. So my mom would always say, she would always say this, that none of our kids are going to be smokers because they see how much difficulty their father goes through with smoking. They won't smoke. She said this 1,000 times. And, let's call a spade a spade. It was total BS, okay? My father wasn't going through such a difficult time smoking. In fact, you call him up right now. We call him up right now. We'll say, Abba. I call my father Abba. That's the Hebrew word for father. Dad. Abba, what was the worst decision you ever made, or something like that? He'll say, quit smoking. Right? He loved smoking. And still to this day, when he passes to people smoking, he wants to get a cigarette. He didn't go through some tough time, but our parents drilled into our head, of course, our kids won't smoke because they see how much and I saw years later, my younger brother I was just privy to a conversation that he had with some other person who says, "Me, I'm never going to smoke. I saw a difficult time that my father had when he was smoking. I would never do that." So I use this as a story to illustrate the fact that, if you tell a child you tell him what he is, well, that's what he is. My parents would always say, our kids don't lie. It's like one of their axioms. Our kids don't lie. So, like, if a child says, "Oh, I did the homework" or "I ate the food," and you happen to know that the kids are lying. For a parent, it's very easy to see through the child's lies. Very easy. Kids don't. I know. I used to think when I was like in school, we had rules: no eating in class. And I was always eating in class. And I would like put my head down like this and like try to chew with just one side, and then you grow up and you see it's very easy to tell. Just a smart parent or educator won't necessarily point out. Give me a second. But if you tell a child, your child tells a lie to you, what do you say? You're a liar. I can prove it to you. Right? That's what your inclination would be to say. That's a mistake. What you should say is, of course I believe you. Our kids don't lie. You would never lie. Right? And then it eats at them because their parent trusted me not to lie, and they say I don't lie, but here I am lying. That's the way to teach your kids to be honest. And I just one more cigarette story. I'll get to you in a second. This is a great illustration that I had a friend I met in yeshiva years later. Who was he wasn't so honest. He wasn't, and he also smoked. That's also relevant to the story. So he told me once that when he smoked, but he told his parents, "No, of course I don't smoke." So his dad, listen to this, pretty crazy. His dad took pictures. He got someone to take pictures of him from a distance, like some private investigator or something like that. And he took pictures of his jacket pocket with cigarettes in it, and he says, "Ta-da! Evidence. You smoke." Right? And this kid, not only does he smoke, but I know him to not be that honest. Because his parents said, "Look, you're dishonest." Right? You tell a child, "Look, you're dishonest." Well, then they're dishonest. And I remember there's another episode that I had with this individual. He was just dishonest. To me, if I want to lie, I have to plan it. So you got to prepare. you have to say, "Okay, what am I going to say?" Because it's natural, and I'm just a little bit more honest. And this guy wasn't. And I remember it was a trivial lie. Why is he? He was just because his parents taught him how to lie. Right? Because that's what you tell a child what they are. That's what they are. That's what they become. If you tell a child you're honest, you would never lie, then they'll never lie. If you say, "Ta-da! I found you. Look, here's the evidence. You're a liar. You're a liar. You win. Parent of the year." Exactly.
If you tell a child you're nothing, you're bad, your father was this, you're going to do that too, they will fulfill that prophecy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Does this work with adults?
Well, adults, the older you get, the harder it is to change. But yes, I do believe that, children are ripe. Children are very malleable. They're ripe for being molded. But once someone is molded in a certain way, it's much harder to break the mold and to recreate it. So yes, a lot of these things about educating our children are also tactics and strategies that we use to educate ourselves or educate our adult pupils, whatever. But it is more difficult. As a child, it's literally you could just twist it whatever way you want. You can make a child into being honest or being a liar. Okay? You're, as a parent, you want the blue pill, you want the red pill. Okay, so reference, I guess that's... Is that dated? Yeah. 1999? 15 years, I guess so.
Was it 15 years?
Yeah, 15 years
No
ago.
way.
1999.
Just Keanu Reeves?
Well, that's, yeah.
Well, it's to what I was saying. I think the answer is yes, but
Oh, I
it
didn't watch that.
more comes down to that individual has to want to make a change to begin with. If they don't recognize the need to or have the desire to.
It's more difficult, certainly.
Well, I do believe my kid's going to be a pediatrician.
Just don't tell him that.
No, she tells me all the time she's going to be a pediatrician.
One more issue, one more point of self-confidence and self-esteem. We said, telling you can do it, giving them responsibilities, trusting them. when there's two kids, when there's a new baby being born, so there's always like a reshuffling of family status. The baby now is not the baby anymore. So they know people aren't fawning over them; they're fawning over the new baby. So there's resentment. So and you have to, the kid has to learn to adapt to the new situation. So one of the strategies that my grandfather advises to employ is this: teaching a kid to be responsible, trusting them to say, they should feel like they are stewards of the new baby. Like, okay, the new baby's crying. It's your baby. Right? You're in charge. Go get a diaper for mommy. Give the baby a pacifier. Right? When they take responsibility, when you tell them that you're in charge of the baby, they feel responsibilities to the baby. They feel positively towards the baby. They're not going to be aggressive and try to poke it at their eyeballs. Okay, so that was number 5. Thou shall boost your child's self-esteem. This is number 6 that was brought up several times. Thou shalt teach by example. The way adults are taught is kind of different than the way children are taught. Children learn much more about what you are, what you do, than what you say. Like you said, if you're smoking and if they don't smoke, or like in shul, sometimes you see, like, very unfortunately, you see like a parent shushing their kid in shul, don't talk in shul, but they themselves are just schmoozing the whole time. The child will most likely follow what you do and not what what you preach. And you know what? And the child is very sensitive to the fact that you're a contradiction. I'll say, and then your status in their minds, shrinks. So, for example, like if you're enthusiastic about life, in likelihood they will be as well. If you're dancing on tables, thanking the Almighty for life, they probably will also be very happy about life. If you're always sad and morose and if you're dour, they'll probably mimic that as well. But that's in life. But I think in Judaism as well. Like if you say, "Oh man, we have to eat matzah now. The Pesach food is it's so stale. It's right in the 6th day." I know there was this girl on Facebook who was complaining endlessly about matzah, about the Pesach food. Right? If you're complaining about Judaism, if you have a negative reaction to Judaism, your kid will probably have a negative reaction to Judaism as well. Oh, shul is so long. What a hassle. Judaism becomes a hassle. If Judaism is a hassle, why would a kid want to do something which is a hassle? Your children respond to pain and pleasure in a very similar way, that adults do. Children don't like pain. They do like pleasure. And this is something that we all know. So why would a kid want to pursue something that's painful? Doesn't make any sense, right? If you make Judaism pleasureful, they'll want to follow it because they want pleasure. If you make Judaism a hassle, pain, then they want to avoid it in any way possible. So it's very simple. You want your kids to be vibrant about Judaism? Make it fun. Right? If it's fun for you, it's fun for them. If they see how much you enjoy Shabbos, right, they'll probably enjoy it as well.
The child wants to please, so if they know that you enjoy Shabbos,
Mm-hmm.
they want to enjoy it too because they want to please you.
Well, that's also true. But
And eventually they will come themselves to enjoy it too. You know what I'm saying?
and I also think that when there's love, like we said, a child wants to emulate the parents. When there isn't love, the child wants to be anything but the parents. Right? If you have positive reactions, I tell my kids every Thursday, I say, "What's tomorrow night?" Shabbos. My kids are so excited to have Shabbos. They get candies, they get dressed up. It's a huge event in our house. It's huge. The kids love it. They get to drink Coke, always special Shabbos foods. They have candies and the Shabbos treats and the Shabbos games and the Shabbos this. And to them, Shabbos is awesome. It's awesome. But they can't listen to music. They can't play with the tablet. So what? The benefits greatly outweigh the drawbacks. It's because we take the effort to make it positive. We go to the store, okay, we're buying our Shabbos treats. Okay, you pick a Shabbos treat, you pick a Shabbos treat, and you pick a Shabbos treat. Like to them, like now Shabbos becomes a pleasure. It's not a hassle. I can't use my phone, can't watch TV. It's fun. But if I'm sitting there complaining or just waiting like this till I can check my emails, my kid will probably share that feeling as well. So point being is that the education that we give to our kids is a lot more about what we do and how we react than what we instruct, than what we tell people, what we tell them verbally. So like with every area of life, but also I think especially in areas of faith and areas of Judaism, if we are positive towards it, if we're excited about it, if we're dancing on tables, they will likely follow suit. And if we're going through the motions and being Jews by rote, they will likely not want to go through that painful experience. Kids respond to pain and pleasure very, very similar to the way adults do. In fact, identically. All we are is just big kids. Adult children. So that's number 6. Thou shalt teach by example. Thou shalt be excited about life and Judaism. Number 7. Thou shalt discipline and demand with consistency. Now, the exact wording I think was not... I don't like the wording that I gave to this. So even though I just said it myself. Point being is that discipline, punishment, how to deal with kids who do things that you don't like them to do is something where I think a lot of parenting goes awry.
Sorry.
No big deal. When I say discipline and demand with consistency, I don't mean that you should always be demanding and disciplining. What I do mean is that like someone mentioned that we don't tell kids no. I would call my mom on the way here. I said, okay. I'm giving a class now about parenting. What are your tips? So she said, all right, I wrote them down. She said, say no as little as possible, but when you say no, you stick by your guns. Consistency is very important for kids to know that there's rules. Whatever the rules are, those are rules, and you stand very firmly by those rules. You don't make a lot of rules. You don't want to be overbearing. You certainly want it's 98% positive. We said we don't want to have the negative, right? But when you have a rule, whatever that rule is, parents should know. The child should know that when a parent says something, they mean it. So if you make a threat to a child. If you go there, you won't get that, right? If you run into the street, you can't ride your bike. Whatever that is, you have to make sure that's not an empty threat. Whatever you choose to make as a guideline, as something which is a rule in your, a standard in your, in your family, whatever you choose, you shouldn't do a lot. Say no as little as possible. Whatever you do, you stick by it. Otherwise, you lose the ability to influence the child. The child knows that, okay, so, if I do something wrong and I get punished, I get consequence, not really punishment, it's a consequence, then the parent won't stick by it. So then the parent's ability to set rules and firm guidelines for conduct disappears. So that's why it's important to, standards are clear and when that the consequences for going against whatever standards rules you have set are consistent. And whatever you demand, not to demand a lot, but whatever you do demand, you demand. And you make sure you achieve that because otherwise you become an ineffectual parent educator. I have a great quote from one of my favorite secular books. The book is called, where is it? Took a snapshot of it. A fellow by the name of Bill James. Have you heard of Bill James? The father of sabermetrics. Have you heard of sabermetrics? He's the guy, advanced statistics using data, like advanced data to. He was the one who wrote the book about baseball. Like had Moneyball. Have you heard of Moneyball? So that's an outgrowth of. So he wrote a book called Popular Crime, which he takes like this. It's an incredible book where he analyzes crime. Tremendous analysis, He says he read over 1,000 crime books. It's a book that can't be described. It's not comparable to any other book ever written. It's very interesting. But anyhow, at the end here, he has a sentence that I liked, and I took a picture of it. In a well-functioning family, punishments are so light as to be hardly recognizable as punishments. Supervision is constant. Standards are clear, and misbehaviors are corrected with a word, a moment's instruction, an explanation, a hug, and if need be, with a few minutes in a timeout chair or being grounded for a week. That's in a well-functioning family. In a dysfunctional family, small misbehaviors go unnoticed and uncorrected. Standards are unclear, and punishments are harsh. The kid gets by with more and more and more, with nobody saying anything. And then he gets slapped, yelled at, humiliated, and grounded for a year. This doesn't work. I could not agree with him more. So that's what I mean by, I'll get to you in a second. That's what I mean by saying that there has to be consistency, there has to be clear guidelines, there has to be rules, and the consequences don't have to be big, but they have to be followed. As opposed to just saying, ignoring, and as the conduct gets worse, slapping or yelling or cursing or punishing, in a outrageous manner. So that's perspective about discipline and demanding. Don't demand so much. Don't discipline so much. Have certain rules, but when you do say no, or when you do demand, make sure that you follow up with that. Otherwise, you become a lame duck parent. I like that, lame duck parent. Listen, your job as a parent is to teach your child how to behave. If it's just random, you're not teaching them. You're not showing them what is the right way to act and what's. So that is number 7. Thou shalt discipline and demand with consistency. Doesn't mean a lot. Don't demand too much, but when you do demand, I'll get in a second. Make sure it's clear. Standards are clear. Rules are clear, and the responses are measured and consistent. Yes. So that's always very dangerous. It's a problem when a child hears one thing at home and another thing in school. I spoke to someone recently who was sending his child to a Catholic school, not a Catholic school, but a school where Catholic influences are very present. And he's trying to teach his daughter about Judaism. So the child gets a mixed message. That's going to be a tremendous challenge. And aside from choosing where you send your kid to school, you really, you can't control what happens, at the school itself. You can't.
That might be where the swimming comes back again, where you have to.
It's a certain challenge, yeah, and I don't think it's healthy, where the child is, because whether you like it or not, the child is a certain, the school is a certain component of the child's education. So. It's an added challenge. It's an added challenge, and it's a difficult thing. You might have to overcompensate for that. You might have to realize that or teach the child that, listen, in school, they say this, but we here, we don't agree with that. Or, in school you may hear something else, or you may learn something else, but I'm your father. I love you, and I know what's best for you. Or whatever. It's a challenge, and it's a difficulty. Mm-hmm. It's hard. Sometimes you have to bite your fingers. For example, quick example, I don't want to get too sidetracked. We have still 3 more commandments that I want to finish, and we have only 14 minutes. But I know that one of, we don't believe, my wife and I, in giving the kids too many rules. So the kid, let's say, it's 58 degrees outside. It's a little chilly. Oh, maybe 48 degrees, whatever. But the kid says he doesn't want to take a coat to school. I have to ask myself the question, is this going to be a battle that I want to fight? And I say, you wear this coat or else. Right? So we chose that we're not making this battle. And so, we send the kid to school without a coat. And what happened? The teacher said to the child, you can't go outside to recess because you're not wearing a coat. So, on one hand, I was a little bit upset at the teacher because what the teacher is really saying is that your parents don't know what the heck they're doing. They're saying your parents are doing something dangerous. And that was a very calculated reason why we made the decision to not, so I have to kind of bite my lip and not call off the teacher and say, what are you doing? On the other hand, something that the kid learns. He just learned, he made a decision, and he had to deal with the consequences. That's a very healthy thing for a kid to know. Speaking about standards, I know my kids, if they get angry, if you're angry, my kids fight all the time. They love each other so much, but they still fight a lot. But they know that even if they're upset at me or my wife, they can never, ever hit their parents. Can't. This is something we have a clear standard the kids know, And, if they're upset, then they'll feel a consequence right away. You cannot hit your parents no matter what. That's a certain guideline, boundary that we set. The kids can fight, you can't bite. This sounds crazy. Like, what kind of family is this, right? But there's certain rules that we have, and it's not many. We don't have lots and lots and lots of rules, but we have rules. Whatever rules we have, we stick to them. Parent discipline, demand, be consistent as well with what you have. Okay, let's move on to number 8. Is there a hard one at 11:30? We're done here. Or do we go to 11:35? Maybe.
The kids are going to come in.
Okay, so I'm going to try to do this as quickly as possible. Okay, thou shalt collaborate with your partners. Parents are not alone, right? They have each other, right? 2 parents per child, and these should be aligned in their parental objectives. Right? If the two parents have to learn that they are a team, and they're just they have to complement each other, and they have to discuss and collaborate with each other, and they should be united in what they want for their child. Because, like we said, otherwise, if there's mixed messages and mixed approaches, the kid will grow up with confusion. There's confusion. Parents have to be united, and it's very difficult because that means you actually have to discuss parenting. And our lives are very busy, but if we want to be good parents, we have to learn that we have to collaborate with our spouses. Not only that, we have to also make sure that our homes are good breeding grounds for healthy kids. If a happy marriage usually produces happy children, miserable marriage usually produces miserable children. One more thing is that the Talmud tells us there's actually 3 partners in every child. Who's the third partner? The Almighty. You cannot leave the Almighty outside of your parenting efforts. We believe in prayer, talking to the Almighty, asking the Almighty for assistance. Remember, we are able to communicate with the Creator of heaven and earth, and all the galaxies and every atom. We're able to communicate with Him. We're able to talk to Him. We're able to, and prayer is a huge part of parenting. That's collaborating with your partners. It's obviously your spouse, right? But also the Almighty. It's so crucial. I know people that pray to the Almighty that He should watch over their kids dozens of times a day. Dozens. You have to pray and I get too sidetracked, but every person in a position of leadership, it could be a rabbi who has a community, it could be a teacher who has students, most certainly to be a parent that has children, has to pray. There's a Talmudic source for this, but has to pray for the well-being, for the success of their constituents, their underlings, the people that they're in charge of. So that's number 8. You have to collaborate with your partners. You have to make sure that the parents are aligned with their educational goals and tactics and strategies that they use for their children. Make sure that your home is a happy home. Happy home, happy marriage usually produces happy kids. Healthy home, healthy marriage produces healthy kids as well. And not to forget, not to leave the third partner outside. Number 9, thou shalt not make your parenting an arena for your own negative character traits. Unfortunately, parents have a propensity to use parenting as a way to exercise their own individual character shortcomings. What do I mean by that? A parent could be jealous of the neighbor's kid or some other kid that they see who just behaves so wonderfully. And then they would act to their child, they would parent their child in a way that is really not for the benefit of the child, but rather because the parent is exercising their own jealousy. That's a terrible thing. That's one example. Parent wants honor. I want everyone to think that I'm a great parent, or I'm brilliant. So therefore, my own negative character is going to influence the way I parent my child. That's very bad. Another example. Revenge. Scary. Parent could want to exercise revenge against their kid. The kid said this to me. I'm angry. I want to get back at them. That sounds demonic, but it's real. Parents have to keep the best interests of their child in mind, and that can be the only factor that that should affect their parenting. They have to make sure that they are not using just their own negative shortcomings and using that as a springboard for parenting. Anger. I'm angry. I'm angry at the kid. Slap him, right? That's obviously bad. Or what I'm doing is I'm using my parenting as an arena for my negative character. Desire for control. Ooh, this is a big one. People want to feel like I have control. I want to control my kid, and that's terrible. And the kids, this is maybe out of everything, this is the most likely to set, to create a chasm between you and your child and making you a lame duck parent. And that is where the child feels like the parent is overbearing, is trying to control them, trying to map out their lives. I want you to be this, you better be this, right? I want you to be a pediatrician, right? Now you said that's your child. I know you said that. You said your daughter says she wants to be a pediatrician.
Help me, please.
I apologize. I don't know why I looked at you, but sometimes a parent wants to impose. And that's a negative characteristic, and this is also not to get too far sidetracked with other aspects of our lives, but in marriage as well. Sometimes it's a very bad characteristic is where one of the spouses wants to control the other one. It's a very negative characteristic, and it has no place in education. We deceive ourselves. We have selfish aims, and we deceive ourselves into thinking, this is the best thing for the child. When in reality, I'm trying to do the best thing for me and to feed my own negative characteristics. And my grandfather declared with finality, without good character, it is impossible to parent properly. If the parent himself or herself does not have good character, does not make sure that they're not acting out of anger, out of revenge, out of desire for control, out of pursuit of honor, all these negative character traits. Obviously, laziness, that's terrible. Like, whatever, lazy. I'm too lazy. It's too heavy. Can't deal with it. Can't deal with it. It's too complicated, right? Negative character traits. If you have negative character traits, you are severely limited in your ability to parent. Thou shalt not make your parenting an arena for your negative character traits. Make sure that you clear away negative character traits, you'll be able to be an effective parent. And we have reached the culmination, the last of the 10 commandments of parenting. Thou shalt not be obstinate. Sometimes parents are convinced that they know what's best, and they're trying it again and again, and it's not working. You have to be flexible. We mentioned earlier, every kid responds differently, to different challenges. Right? We want to make sure that you're not the fly. You don't have fly in the window syndrome. Sometimes you see like a wet fly and it's in the window. So again, like it's sure that there's nothing there, right? And it wants to just fly right through the window. It just sees something that it wants there. It wants to go there, but it keeps on hitting some invisible wall. Parenting, sometimes we keep on hitting invisible walls, and we just want to will it, want to force it, want to just, and it's just not working. We have to be very flexible. If something that you're trying to do with your child is not working, try something else. In our family, we have and my wife and I, we call this buy them a pet. Sometimes the best thing for a child is to have responsibility to have a pet. Just that's what we call in our family. Because you have to be willing to be creative. You have to brainstorm. Say, okay, this child, for whatever reason, is having this difficulty. And whatever we're trying to do, it's not working. Let's try something else. Don't stick to your guns. I know of parents who have a certain way of doing things, and that's the way it is. And they're not willing to negotiate. And for example, there was one kid who was having scholastic academic challenges. And the parent and the kid really needed to just be let alone. He was 10 years old or 12 years old. His brain is still mush, right? He's still fermenting, percolating. Let him grow up. Let him be a child. So he's and you know what? Now down the line, he's not going to be an academic. He isn't. He wasn't made to be that. But the parents were insisting because they had fly in the window syndrome, and this crippled the child's self-esteem because the child is constantly being told or being presented a situation where they cannot succeed because a parent insists on the child getting A's and B's or even C's. Right? Let the child be creative. It's not working, right? And the negative after effects are disastrous, and you don't even end up achieving what you wanted to achieve to begin with. Thou shalt not be obstinate. As a parent, you have to be flexible. You have to be creative. You have to realize that different kids respond differently. You cannot be insistent on one particular aspect or angle of parenting and just being totally resolute and totally non-negotiable about anything. Right? Buy him a pet, we call it in our family. Right? Be creative. Do not be set in your ways. Parenting, obviously, as the child's progress, and if you have a few children, there's going to be so many different elements and angles. You have to be very flexible, very fluid in your parenting.
Rabbi,
Thus,
you have 5 extra minutes if you want. They're making candles out there.
oh, they're making candles out there.
They're hot-billet candles.
Oh,
so.
nice. Yes, David.
I have 2 questions. The first is, does the Torah or the Talmud say anything about you really shouldn't have kids, or these type of Jews shouldn't have kids, or that they should limit the number that they have? Is there any? Is there anything?
You worried about overpopulation?
Well, no. Obviously, I'm concerned about traits, and then the second question is, and I was just my sister and I. And then I only have a single daughter. So I'm always intrigued by individuals such as your family that had 9 kids, or you have 4, or, I know of non-Jews, Mormons that have 6 and 10 kids. Is there a limit? Because it seems to me as though just intellectually, would be virtually impossible to give every child what it needs based on what you're discussing when the family size is 6 or 9 or 12 or whatever. So I wonder if you could talk about, about limitations.
Okay, so there's a few things here. So first of all, the Torah, the very first mitzvah in the Torah is be fruitful and multiply. Now remember, the Torah is a book of what? Instructions. Instructions is primarily about how to become a better person, how to perfect yourself, how to train a human how to be a human. The first thing it's telling you is that you want to be a human, you have to have kids. Why? Perhaps because nothing will test you more than having children. And therefore nothing will be an impetus that you could use, if harnessed properly, to become a better person. That being said, the Torah requirement, the mitzvah of be fruitful and multiply, says the Talmud, means to have at least one boy and one girl, which is a little bit less than the replacement rate, but means that two parents, a male and a female, they should at least produce a male and a female. That's the minimum. That's one mitzvah. There's another mitzvah also from elsewhere that says, L'shavas yitzara, that the Almighty created the world to be ongoing. If we take a year off or a decade off from a generation off from having kids, the world ceases to exist. So that would, according to the Talmud, there's also a mitzvah to have, even beyond the core requirement of having two kids, there's still a mitzvah to having more children. That being said, every child has a right to be born into a healthy family. And if the family is not healthy, it's not happy, they have no right to have children. Now, obviously, you tell that to people, say, whoa, wait a minute, there was this one comedian who says that he wants people to like have to take, people take road tests before they're able to drive. They should have to take a road test before they can have children. I'm not saying that. Obviously, in our society, everyone's going to have as many kids as they want. And we look at the Chinese as being, the Chinese rule is being very harsh, and we don't believe in that, obviously. But children have a right to grow up in a healthy, happy, normal environment. So we don't believe in having kids and not knowing what to do with them. So I don't know if your question was about contraception but yes, absolutely. If the family cannot handle it, can't handle it financially, if they cannot handle it emotionally, if your assertion, which I will disagree with you, David, as much as I love you, I disagree that there comes a limit. I think don't underestimate the capabilities of humans. Yes, probably to go from 0 to 60 is a bit of a stretch. But I know a family in Israel, actually Anglo parents, but they have 17 children. And the kids are so well balanced, so healthy, remarkably healthy. I would argue that you'll be hard pressed to find a single child family in America that the kids are as healthy as any one of these 17 kids.
But the first 15 are difficult. After that, it's really.
Yeah. The first 50 kids are always the most difficult. Yeah. So your assertion that there has to be a limit, I don't know if I agree with that. That being said, if the family can't do it, they can't do it emotionally, physically, right? We don't believe in wearing our women or even our men down. Women traditionally as being the ones who are at the forefront of taking care of kids. If they're up all night with kids and they go crazy, So who says that we're trying to torture and self-flagellation? That's not a Jewish idea. We don't believe in that. And like we said, you have a requirement to have a minimum of 2 children. That's the mitzvah. If you're able to handle them, if you're able to give them what they need, if you're able to build them, to give them the confidence, to give them the love, to give them the attention, to give them the care, then all the more so. You said you had another question? Did I cover the question sufficiently? Okay, yes?
I think maybe, if I'm wrong, maybe it comes down to being responsible enough to know that if you can't handle it, that you shouldn't bring a child into the world that you can't.
Absolutely. 100%. And I think it's a good thing. Like, parenting is a responsibility. If you're not up to the task, don't get yourself involved in it. It's not easy. And the payoff, hopefully there will be a payoff, called nachas, right? You'll have that payoff, hopefully. You'll have the pleasure that comes associated with seeing your own children, being on the road. Like my grandfather once likened this to taking a candle, parenting is taking a candle, an existing candle, and lighting another candle, the candle is fully lit when it's able to be on its own, so to speak. So that takes a long time. The payout, the pleasure payout of parenting is 20, 30 years down the line. So a lot of people don't have the chops for it. Well, maybe then, if their kids are going to be neglected, maybe they shouldn't be involved in it. So.
I did have a question.
Yes.
I just want to make a comment. Going back to the very
Yeah.
I've never heard anything about where's the mitzvah for the female.
Yes, that's a famous question. There's a few different answers. Popular answer is that the mitzvah is, some want to claim that women are, so to speak, circumcised already. Right? There's a certain element. I don't get to talk about what circumcision really is all about, but it's about a certain element of perfection that a male needs to attain over life, but women just have it to begin with.
You're going to a great start.
That's true. Circumcision. I can speak about it. We can have a whole class about it. But circumcision is on. It's basically kickstarting what's going to be hopefully a life replete with perfection. We're trying to perfect oneself, and a certain element of that women already have. Women you don't need, so to speak. So they're already like circumcised. Okay, so that's the Ten Commandments marriage. So quickly, let us quickly.
You can see why that's a popular answer.
Yeah.
Well, no, because like men are commanded to read the Torah, but women are not. Men have the responsibility. Men and women have different responsibilities. So women don't require the circumcision because they have different duties. And so God does not expect the same level of commitment from women than they do from men, because women have fundamentally different roles inside the home. Like men are the ones that are commanded to go to temple often and to pray like at late night hours. Women are not, like Orthodox.
Okay, well, there you have it.
Megan Bagwell knows it all. I was kidding.
So let's quickly run through the Ten Commandments once again. Just quickly. Thou shalt parent. You have to parent. Thou shalt individualize your parent. Every kid's different. Thou shalt parent with a long-term view. Don't trade short-term gains for the future. Think down the road. That has to be the attitude of the parent. Planting and building, you want to instill things that will develop over time. Thou shalt love your child and express it. That's the baseline for any parenting. Thou shalt boost your child's self-esteem. That's your primary goal, in my opinion. Thou shalt teach by example. Not everything that we teach our children is something that we're going to tell them, we're going to preach to them. They're going to pick up most of it, they'll pick up on their own from the way we act. Thou shalt discipline them out with consistency. Don't demand too much. Don't push too hard, but whatever you do push, you insist by it, otherwise you become a lame duck parent. Number 8. Why is it scrolling down? What was number 8? Thou shalt collaborate with your partners. You have your spouse and the Almighty. They're with you together. Thou shalt not make parenting an arena for your own negative character traits. And thou shalt not be obstinate. And in summation, I think that parenting, while is a very difficult task, I do think that there's a certain, part of who we are and how we're going to be defined in our lives is going to be by our, likely most of us, our greatest contribution to the world is going to be our own children. So therefore, it's important for us to make sure we put the time and the effort, as difficult as it is, and it is very difficult. And no one's going to, if you think that you're going to just, oh yeah, sure, we'll just put the kids on some sort of conveyor belt and just let it happen. It doesn't happen like that. It's very difficult, and there's it's lots of work. But ultimately, and the pad is all the way down the line, but the pad is the greatest. And it kind of is the expression of who you are. It's a reflection of who you are as an individual. The culmination of that is going to be your children, and this is also going to be your contribution to the Jewish people, right? Because we're here because our parents went through the hassle of having us and dealing with our own shenanigans. So it's like your contribution to society, contribution to the Jewish people as well, and ultimately it's like a fulfillment of who you are as a person. We could judge a lot about who a parent is and who they are and what they stood for in their lives by looking at their kids. So it's important for us to make sure that we take the time and the effort that's necessary to ensure that our kids are models for admiration and beacons for society and the community and the Jewish people. And I wish you all the best of luck. And thank you all for listening. And I kind of wish my wife was here because she would have a lot to add. Just say, oh, yeah, of course. Now you have to practice what you preach. But, it's lovely. We'll see everyone next week. Next week, we have what's on schedule for next week, Dan?
What happens after you die.
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. So that sounds like it's interesting as well.
Is that right after prayer?
Yes. Best of